Something is happening among men, but it's happening quietly, almost invisibly. You won't see it in headlines. You won't hear it in conversations. But if you look closely, very closely, you'll notice the absence before you notice the change. Men aren't dating the way they used to. Not because they've turned cold or bitter or hopeless, but because they finally started listening to the voice they've ignored for years. The voice that whispers, "You're exhausted." Exhausted from being the only one trying. Exhausted from conversations that feel like interviews. Exhausted from connections that never grow roots. Exhausted from being told to do more while receiving less and less in return. So they didn't explode. They didn't fight. They didn't announce their frustration to the world. They just quietly stepped back, one unread message at a time, one disappointing date at a time, one emotional bruise at a time, and slowly, something unexpected happened. Life started to feel lighter without the weight of forced effort. The world might call it avoidance. But ask the men living it, and they'll tell you it feels like breathing again. Like finally walking out of a room that's been suffocating for years. Like choosing sanity over stress. Like choosing peace over pressure. No drama, no arguments, no long explanations. Just a tired man choosing not to participate in something that drains him more than it fulfills him. The signs are everywhere now. Less interest, fewer attempts, more silence. Not because they don't want companionship, but because the modern dating game stopped feeling worth the emotional cost. And for the first time in a long time, men are realizing something powerful. Life feels better when they stop chasing what doesn't value them. This is the silent exit. Not out of defeat, but out of clarity. It didn't happen in a single moment. It didn't come from one fight, one disappointment, or one bad date. The shift crept in slowly, almost silently, through small experiences that didn't seem important at the time until they added up and became impossible to ignore. He didn't stop trying overnight. He stopped because trying started to feel heavy. At first, he told himself to be patient. People get busy. People forget to reply. People need time. So, he kept starting the conversations, kept checking his phone, kept hoping that maybe this time the effort would come back his way. But messages stayed unread. Plans stayed uncertain. Interests stayed half-hearted. And something inside him started to dim. He noticed how every conversation felt like he was dragging it forward alone. How every joke he made was met with short replies. How every thoughtful message he sent ended with a scene instead of a real response. It wasn't rejection that hurt. It was being invisible while trying so hard to be present. He stopped putting effort into dates, too. Not because he didn't care, but because every date felt like he was being evaluated, not known. There was always a checklist, a test, a silent comparison. He felt like he was sitting across from someone searching for reasons to dismiss him, not someone hoping to understand him. And the more he tried to prove he was enough, the more he felt like he wasn't. He stopped chasing validation he never received, stopped trying to impress people who treated his effort like background noise, stopped being the only one initiating, the only one planning, the only one showing emotion. He began to see the truth. He wasn't failing. He was overextending. Trying to fix connections that weren't mutual became its own form of heartbreak. He gave clarity while receiving confusion. He gave effort while receiving excuses. He gave interest while receiving indifference. Little by little, the emotional cost became heavier than the reward. He started asking himself uncomfortable questions. Why am I always the one keeping things alive? Why do I feel more lonely inside a conversation than outside of it? Why does every attempt feel like a performance instead of connection? Men didn't give up. They simply grew tired of feeling unreturned, tired of investing in places that never grew, tired of showing up for people who didn't show up back, tired of trying to open doors that were never meant to open. And in that quiet exhaustion, a realization formed. It's not that he wanted less. It's that he deserved more. This was the moment the shift truly began. Not with anger, not with blame, but with a tired man finally understanding that constant effort is not love, it's self-sacrifice. And he was done sacrificing himself to keep someone else interested. There came a point when men started to notice something they never wanted to admit. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but through small moments that cut deeper than they expected. They began to realize that their effort didn't mean much anymore. Not because effort had lost value, but because appreciation did. He used to be proud of being consistent, proud of showing up, proud of being reliable, stable, steady. But somewhere along the way, consistency became the bare minimum. As if keeping his word was nothing more than a basic requirement. As if the loyalty he offered was simply expected, not cherished. He noticed how his kindness was brushed aside, or worse, misunderstood. A compliment made him thirsty. A thoughtful gesture made him too available. A genuine interest made him clingy. Kindness, something he was taught to give freely, slowly became something people mocked or dismissed. He learned that staying loyal didn't earn respect. It just made him the safest option to ignore. And that realization hurt more than rejection ever could. He stopped feeling like a partner and started feeling like a placeholder. Useful when needed, invisible otherwise. Everything he did was absorbed into routine. His effort became background noise. A ride he offered, a plan he made, a problem he solved, a shoulder he provided. None of it sparked gratitude. It was simply assumed he would show up, assumed he would fix it, assumed he would handle it. Men aren't built to beg for appreciation, but they can feel when it's gone. He felt it in the way people only reached out when they wanted something. He felt it in conversations that only existed when he initiated them. He felt it in connections where he was the listener, while no one ever asked him how he was really doing. There is a specific kind of pain men carry quietly. The pain of feeling needed but not valued. He wasn't loved for the man he was. He was useful for the things he could provide. And somewhere deep inside, something broke. Not loudly, not violently, just a quiet crack in a place no one sees. He started to question himself. Is my kindness pointless? Is my effort invisible? Do my feelings matter? Does anyone notice when I hurt? He didn't want applause. He didn't want a trophy. He just wanted to feel like what he gave meant something. But modern dating turned genuine men into background characters. Always available, always dependable, always overlooked. So, he did what any tired heart eventually does. He stepped back. Not because he wanted to be alone, but because he refused to stay where he felt invisible. Men didn't stop caring. They stopped bleeding for people who didn't notice when they were hurting. Modern dating was supposed to make connection easier. Instead, it turned it into a competition, a marketplace disguised as love. People don't meet anymore. They browse. Swipe left, swipe right, swipe again. Humans turned into profiles, and profiles turned into products. It's hard to build something real when everyone's treating each other like items on a shelf. Conversations that once had warmth now feel rehearsed, recycled, predictable. People enter chats with scripts instead of sincerity. Every sentence feels like it's been copied from the last person they talked to. Everything sounds polite, but nothing feels personal. And for men, the imbalance became impossible to ignore. Women open an app and get flooded. Likes, swipes, messages, endless attention. Men open the same app and are greeted with silence. Not because they're unworthy, but because in a world that runs on digital validation, some people get more currency than others. It's not jealousy. It's the reality of the ecosystem. The more options someone receives, the less they value any of them. And the ones with fewer options learn to stop chasing altogether. Everyone became replaceable, even the good ones. A better match is always one swipe away. So commitment starts to feel like a trap, not a choice. Why build something slowly when you can scroll for something instantly? Men saw it happening. They watched how interest faded the moment another option appeared. They felt how quickly conversations died when someone newer, shinier, more exciting entered the picture. Dating stopped being about connection and became a constant competition for attention. He wasn't talking to a person. He was competing with the notifications on her phone. He wasn't trying to build something real. He was auditioning for a role that could be replaced without warning. The disappointment wasn't about losing someone. It was about realizing he never had a real chance to begin with. He noticed that most people didn't want to know him. They wanted to be entertained by him. They didn't want his heart. They wanted a distraction. And when that hit him, the clarity was sharp. He wasn't dating anymore. He was performing, trying to stand out in a crowd where everyone thinks they deserve the best, but no one wants to give their best back. In a world filled with endless options, genuine interest became rare. Depth became inconvenient. Commitment became optional. Real connection became an afterthought. And men quietly, painfully, understood something. They weren't losing at dating. They were trying to win a game that wasn't meant to be fair. That realization didn't make them angry. It made them done. When men finally stepped away, they expected loneliness. They expected emptiness. They expected the silence to feel heavy, maybe even frightening. But something strange happened instead. The silence started to heal them. At first it felt unfamiliar. The kind of quiet that makes you aware of every breath. No buzzing phone, no mixed signals, no emotional guessing games, just stillness. And for the first time in years, stillness didn't feel like punishment. It felt like relief. He woke up one morning and realized there was no tension in his chest, no walking on eggshells, no preparing himself for another confusing conversation, no waiting to be chosen, no trying to decode someone's mood. Just a simple morning, a calm one, a peaceful one. He didn't know peace could feel this good. The more distance he created from the chaos, the more he understood how drained he truly was, how much energy he had poured into things that never poured back, how much of himself he had lost trying to hold together connections that were already slipping. But with that distance came something beautiful, clarity. His days became lighter. His thoughts became sharper. His emotions became steadier. He started going to the gym not to escape stress, but because it made him feel alive. He started cooking for himself, discovering the quiet joy of feeding his own body and mind. He picked up old hobbies he had abandoned, building things, reading, learning, creating activities he forgot he loved because he was too busy trying to be enough for someone else. Purpose slowly replaced loneliness, and the more he focused on his purpose, the less he craved the chaos he once thought was love. He realized that peace wasn't empty, it was full of time, full of growth, full of self-respect, full of mental space he never had before. His life wasn't missing anything. It was finally free from everything that had been draining him. And it dawned on him, maybe life wasn't supposed to feel like a constant emotional battle. Maybe love wasn't supposed to feel like survival. Maybe the greatest turning point wasn't finding someone. It was rediscovering himself. Peace didn't just become a preference. It became precious. And once he tasted it, he knew he would never trade it for chaos again. The moment men started choosing themselves, society didn't stay silent. It had something to say about every choice they made. When a man works hard and focuses on his goals, he's called selfish, as if ambition becomes arrogance the second it belongs to him. When he opens up about his struggles, he's dismissed as weak, as if vulnerability is a virtue only when someone else expresses it. When he sets boundaries, when he protects his peace, when he says no to disrespect, he's suddenly labeled toxic, not because he's wrong, but because he stopped being endlessly available. And when a man chooses solitude, when he decides he'd rather be alone than drained, they call him broken, as if peace is a sign of damage instead of healing. It's strange, isn't it? A woman choosing herself is empowerment. A man choosing himself is a problem. The world applauds her independence but questions his. She is strong for walking away. He is cold for doing the same. He's expected to give endlessly, carry quietly, support without hesitation, sacrifice without complaint. And the moment he steps back, the moment he says, "I'm tired," the moment he chooses to protect what little energy he has left, he becomes the villain in a story he never wrote. Men aren't allowed to rest. Not emotionally, not mentally, not socially. They're told to provide, to pursue, to initiate, to fix, to endure. And if they crack under that weight, they're mocked for not being strong enough. Is it any surprise they finally walked away? But here's the truth. Society doesn't want to admit. Men stepping back isn't rebellion. It's self-preservation. It's a man realizing he can't keep pouring into empty spaces. It's him understanding he can't be the emotional punching bag for a culture that only sees his value when he's suffering. It's him choosing his mental health over expectations that were never human to begin with. He's tired of proving he's good enough. Tired of being judged for things he can't control. Tired of apologizing for, wanting the same respect he gives. The world shames men for disappearing, but never questions why they felt the need to disappear in the first place. Maybe men didn't change. Maybe society just stopped appreciating what they offered. And when a man discovers peace, when he realizes he doesn't need validation to feel whole, when he stops living for applause he'll never receive, he becomes untouchable, not angry, not bitter, just done. Because once a man understands that protecting himself is not selfish, but necessary, he never goes back to breaking himself for approval again. When the noise fades and the dust settles, something incredible happens. A different version of him begins to rise quietly, steadily, without asking for permission or applause. He doesn't announce his transformation. He doesn't broadcast his growth. He simply rebuilds himself in silence, piece by piece, habit by habit, choice by choice. He becomes the man he always hoped to be, not for someone else, but for himself. He wakes up earlier, sleeps deeper, moves with purpose, lives with intention. His days stop revolving around who he might lose and start revolving around what he can build. The gym becomes more than exercise. It becomes discipline, a reminder that strength isn't given, it's earned. His hobbies become therapy, working with his hands, learning new skills, finding joy in things that don't require approval. Books replace arguments. Peace replaces anxiety. Focus replaces validation. He stops chasing people who don't value him because he finally understands that his worth isn't measured by who chooses him, but by who he chooses to become. He doesn't beg for love anymore. He doesn't negotiate for effort. He doesn't shrink himself to fit into someone else's comfort. He protects his peace the way he once protected relationships, with loyalty, consistency, and devotion. Except this time, that loyalty is directed inward. Boundaries stop being uncomfortable. They become necessary. He says no without guilt. He walks away without fear. He chooses himself without hesitation. And the world notices. Not because he's louder, but because he's calmer. Not because he's distant, but because he's centered. Not because he's closed off, but because he's finally whole. There's a new confidence in him. Not loud or arrogant, but grounded. A kind of quiet certainty that only comes from surviving what once broke him. He's not hardened. He's not cold. He's not numb. He's simply done giving his soul to people who only offered him confusion in return. This is the man who emerges steady, self-respecting, unshakable. A man who knows his value doesn't chase attention. He attracts respect. He attracts calm. He attracts people who recognize his energy, not his effort. And for the first time in a long time, he feels proud of the man in the mirror. Not because someone loves him, but because he finally does. With time, after the distance, after the silence, after the healing, something begins to shift inside him. Not a longing, not a desperation, just a quiet understanding. He never stopped wanting connection. He stopped wanting the version of connection that made him feel small. Because a peaceful man doesn't fear love. He fears losing himself inside it. He isn't hiding from relationship. He's hiding from the chaos that once came with it. He's not avoiding intimacy. He's avoiding the emotional confusion that used to drain him. He wants someone to walk beside him, not someone to pull him backward. Someone who brings calm, not storms. Someone who speaks truth, not mixed signals. Someone who chooses clarity, not games. He wants love, just not the kind that requires him to abandon himself. And here's the beautiful part. A peaceful man naturally attracts peaceful energy. He no longer chases attention because he doesn't need it. He no longer performs for validation because he finally respects himself. He no longer begs to be understood because he understands his own worth. Now, when a man reaches this level of self-respect, the world around him shifts. The wrong people quietly fall away. The right people naturally stay. The noise fades, the peace grows, and eventually someone arrives, not perfect, not flawless, but healed enough to recognize the calm in him. When two healed people meet, the connection feels different. There is no competition, no power struggle, no need to outshine or outsmart. Just two people who have lived through heartbreak and learned the value of gentleness. They don't drain each other. They protect each other. They don't take advantage of peace. They honor it. They don't fear commitment. They welcome it because they know what chaos looks like, and they've chosen not to live in it again. This is the kind of love he's open to now. Quiet, steady, meaningful. Love that complements his life, not complicates it. Love that respects boundaries, not breaks them. Love that grows slowly but deeply. A love that does not cost him his self-worth, but strengthens it. Because in the end, men didn't walk away from women. They walked away from a system that demanded their strength, but ignored their struggle. A culture that celebrated their sacrifices, but overlooked their scars. A world that praised their effort, but dismissed their pain. And by stepping back, by choosing solitude, by embracing silence, they discovered something they had been missing for years. They found themselves, and once a man finds himself, he will only welcome love that lets him remain